All right, having, I guess I should have said, be consistent, but having a slightly bigger truck. Jenin, I think, offers some remarks. This is from a précis. No, this is from the book itself. So from Situate itself, a couple of remarks that I think are helpful in understanding the relationship between objectivity and intersubjective agreement. Physics, she says, is defined by the project of giving an objective description of the world in the sense of objectivity expressed by invariance across transformations between interlocutors, where interlocutors are understood in the widest sense as including not just perceiving subjects, but any kind of situated physical system. So that can include the machines. And by the way, we also sometimes barely understand what the computer is doing with our data. We do a lot of our own programming, but of course we use lots of programs off the shelf that we only sort of understand. The point of representation, quite generally, from a dynamical point of view, is to break the contextual constraints on the propagation of information. That is, to fashion information-bearing states whose information properties are fully intrinsic to them so that they can be moved around, sent forward in time, and exchanged without loss or change of content. Now, of course, I should add, there's of course going to be some change of content when you have imperfect understanding amongst the members of the distributed network. There will be some change because, as I just explained, properties are going to get dragged in marked. But objectivity here is a regular idea, not the achievement. In Jenin's conception of objectivity, quoted there, is very similar to that appealed to in our book. So, according to us, pursuit of that conception of objectivity is transferability of information across perspectives. There'll be an S there. Across perspectives eventually escapes the capacities of natural language. But, as Jenin also recognized, if we lived exclusively out on that limit, if we only did fundamental physics, and we didn't do any special science, we would lose huge swaths of information that are relatively perspective dependent. And the point of relatively is there, the degree of perspective dependence changes from domain to domain and scale to scale. And that's why we have special sciences, which again includes most of physics and basically all of physics showcased in Marxism. Having a still bigger truck. That is yet more truck with what Marx says he wants no truck with. Remind you of the truck business game. The self, Dan argues, is an organization of narratives, so an autobiography, that is imposed on some, but not all, experience by a person. That project would be too unconstrained for hope of success were it not governed by the expectations of others, right? Expectations that are partly, but crucially, encoded in scaffolding, including public languages. So that's yet another sense in which, for objectivity, right, the objectivity which is the objectivity kept track of in the narration of the self, right, the person who, the entity that has the knowledge and adds to the knowledge and reflects on their own knowledge and makes and adjusts concepts, is dependent on its place in a distributed network of knowledge. In science, the scaffolding in question includes, among other things, standards of refereeing, conventions and styles of reporting, and tacit and explicit local agreements about the mathematics that are best suited to particular domains and subdomains. When we endorse this level of this respect in which intersubjective agreement seems to us not only crucial for objectivity, but increasingly so given the way science is developing, we can nevertheless appreciate and endorse as well the efforts of both Michael and Mark to resist excesses of holism. I remain standardly persuaded that there isn't any intrinsic or essential connection between emphasis on distributed on the distributed nature of scientific knowledge and the distributed nature, relevant today, distributed nature of conceptual understanding and holism. So when our group, we certainly have I think, distributed conceptual understanding. But we're not holists, we're just worried about intertemporal discounting and risk attitudes, right? But nothing to use Marx again. World War II is never going to crowd into the question, into the issue. And like Wilson, or like Mark, but unlike Michael, we don't have much trouble with Kuhnian conceptions of the histories. So I said I would try, this brings me back now, by way of that detour through Wilsonian themes, and some criticism of Wilsonian themes, helpful appeal to others who are here today. This brings me back to try and identify the substantive differences between Michael and us.